So basically, I have my top reasons for doubting Bob Lazar's story. Number one starts with his W-2 form, which has some date issues. The fact that it's issued by a department in the Navy which was closed after World War II and is now the Office of Naval Intelligence, not the Department of Naval Intelligence. And it doesn't quite explain why he'd be paid directly by the Navy and not by one of the bigger contractors that does a lot of the work outside of Area 51, like EG&G, for example. EG&G or Wackenhut. Wackenhut was the security. They're now G4S Secure Solutions, but Wackenhut was the company that used to do security at Area 51, and they would have probably handled at least some portion of the badging if he had one badge that he does show. Let's find that badge right here. This is supposedly Bob Lazar's badge, again issued by the U.S. Department of Naval Intelligence, which was closed after World War II. Some have argued that that may have maybe it was closed, but it's a secret kind of thing, like the Manhattan Project was kind of like continued under, and it was sort of, kept secret as like a hidden office of the Navy where these sort of black projects operate out of. Again, doesn't make sense in terms of what we would expect from a real employee working at a facility with where EG&G was the contractor and Wackenhut was the security provider. Why they wouldn't be issuing the badges and being in charge of electronic security, and if that's in fact Bob Lazar said this wasn't the actual badge, this was a replication that he made himself. Again, Bob Lazar doesn't have the credentials. That was another issue, is his educational background.
I did a lot of checking on Bob. I tried to meet with him twice. I was supposed to on one occasion, and he didn't go along. I checked at MIT. I checked at Caltech. Neither one ever heard of them. Well, but the government wiped his records clean is the response. I talked to the legal counsel at MIT. No way to do that. I talked with the guy who has the degrees, the commencement lists and all that sort of thing. No mention of Lazar. None of the yearbooks show Lazar. You need it for a master's thesis. Well, for a master's degree, you need a thesis. I talked to the guy who holds those. No Lazar item there. He was asked publicly, when did you get your master's from MIT? Well, let me see now. I think it was, probably 1982.
What was the year of your graduation from MIT, and did you get a PhD?
No, it's a master's degree. What was the year of graduation? Probably 82, because I think I left there.
You went to Los Alamos?
I went to Los Alamos.
Thanks.
I have friends who went to MIT. I was accepted there myself, couldn't afford to go out of high school. And nobody who gets a master's degree in physics from MIT doesn't know what year he got it in. He was asked to name some of his professors. Well, let's see now. He named somebody, somebody, I won't use his name on the air. I checked on him. It was not a common name, fortunately. He was a physicist.
You say your records at Caltech and MIT have somehow disappeared?
And Los Alamos and probably everywhere else.
Is there any way you could reconstruct your coursework and your professors?
Oh, sure. I've got people that that I went to school with, and George Knapp has spoken to some of them, and he even flew with me up to Los Alamos and spoke to my colleagues there, and it's just.
Could you reveal some of your professors at MIT and Caltech?
Yeah, if you want. I don't have a list of them here. Dr. Duxler, I think, was one of them, and Hosefield was another.
Hosefield?
Hosefield. Hoshsfield or something along those lines.
They remember you?
Oh yeah, Hosefield I know well.
These were at MIT or Caltech?
Hosefield was at MIT. Duxler was at Caltech.
The only trouble is Bob said he would remember him from Caltech. This individual, Bill, never taught at Caltech. He only taught at Pierce Junior College. Now, Bob himself had mentioned Pierce to me on the phone. He did go there. Now, that's in Southern California, and he was going there at the same time that he was supposedly attending MIT, 2,500 miles east of there. One heck of a commute. If you can go to MIT, you don't go to Pierce Junior College. But beyond that, I checked with his high school. He finished in the bottom third of his high school class. You can't get into MIT if you're outside usually the top 10, 15, 20% of your class. Bottom third, never. His Element 115 scheme won't work. Sounds good, science fiction. So, I checked with Los Alamos. He is in the phone book there. Doesn't that prove that he was a scientist working there? No, it certainly doesn't prove he was a scientist, but if you look at the phone book page, up at the very top it says, this phone book for employees of the Los Alamos National Laboratory, the Department of Energy, Kirk Meyer Corporation, several other companies. Right after Bob's name, and he was only in one phone book issue, they issue them every several months, it says K/M. That's Kirk Meyer, a subcontractor. He worked out at the Maison facility. Don't need a clearance for that. People come in from all over the world, physicists, to do experiments, and he was a technician working out there. And the story goes on and on beyond that. And I get people telling me, well, I don't see why you don't believe him. He seems so sincere. Sincerity is not a check on truth.
As we've seen in that last video, none of his educational background can be confirmed. You'd expect that if you did go to MIT during those years, he said, and even if they did erase your records, we have Facebook now. You could find people out there that you went to school with that could vouch for you and confirm things for you. Find more than one of them with Facebook out there. So there's really no excuse for why he has not been able to confirm that he went to either of these schools or has the educational background that he says he has. What we do know about Bob is that he was a self-employed photo processor. That's what he listed himself as on court documents. There was a court case that Bob Lazar was involved in. You can look that up too. So he was basically has a history of dishonesty, making up really elaborate stories. And people ask, like, oh, why would he go through that extent to make up such a crazy story? And I'll tell you what, it's for the money. It's because this stuff sells and people will believe it. And they'll defend it even when they're proven wrong with really good research and evidence. They'll find any excuse to deny the truth, which is really sad. So anyways, yeah, his educational background, his prior record, the security badge, again, should have been issued by EGG. And number 5 was really, I had this, wanted to talk about Element 115 and his discrepancies and what he's talked about with S4, and I wanted to make a correction about the last video where I was referring to this area up here as being possible location for S4, whereas someone corrected me and said they actually believe it was closer to this Papoose Lake area. This particular mountainside right here is allegedly the one that opens up with holograms to a hangar that's invisible. But again, I'll save that for another video and another time.